The moment I stepped onto the plane, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. It was supposed to be a special day for me, the first time I had ever splurged on a first-class ticket. I had worked hard for this moment, saving up, dreaming about what it would be like to sit in one of those big, comfortable seats at the very front of the cabin. I could already imagine stretching my legs, sipping a drink, and enjoying the flight without a care in the world. But little did I know, things were about to take an unexpected turn that would leave the entire plane stunned. As I walked down the aisle with my boarding pass in hand, I noticed someone already sitting in my seat. She was dressed well, looking confident, and had that air of entitlement around her. When I politely explained that she might be in the wrong place, she didn't even bother to look up. Instead, she smirked and said, "This is my seat now. You can go sit in economy like everyone else." My heart dropped. I tried to explain again, showing her my ticket, but she crossed her arms and refused to move. The flight attendants arrived, but instead of helping, their response left me completely speechless. Instead of asking her to move, they actually told me to find another seat because the flight was full. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had paid for first class, yet here I was being treated like I didn't matter. The other passengers started whispering, some clearly uncomfortable, but no one stepped in. That's when something inside me shifted. I wasn't about to let someone take advantage of me. Not after all the effort I had put into this trip. What happened next shocked everyone on board. With the entire cabin watching, I made a decision that changed the course of that flight completely. The engines were ready to roar, but before we even left the ground, everything came to a sudden halt. The cabin fell into an uneasy silence as everyone waited to see what I would do next. My ticket was still in my hand, proof that the seat was mine. Yet the woman sitting there acted as if she owned the entire plane. She leaned back, adjusted her scarf, and looked at me with a smug smile that made my stomach twist. It wasn't just about the seat anymore. It was about respect, about being treated fairly. I could feel every eye on me. From the rows of economy passengers craning their necks to the crew members shifting uncomfortably. Unsure of how to respond, I tried one more time to reason with the attendants, hoping they would see the unfairness of the situation. But instead of supporting me, they spoke in hushed voices with the woman, almost as if they knew her personally. That only made the whispers around the cabin grow louder. Who was she? Why were the crew so quick to defend her when I was the one holding the ticket? My frustration mixed with curiosity, and the more I thought about it, the more it felt like something bigger was going on here. As I stood there, gripping my boarding pass, memories of the sacrifices I had made for this trip flooded back. Long nights of work, skipped vacations, saving every penny just so I could finally enjoy a little luxury. And now, in the moment that should have felt rewarding, I was being pushed aside like I didn't belong. The pressure in the air grew heavier, and I could sense the other passengers waiting for me to give up. But giving up wasn't an option. The engines hummed louder, the plane preparing for takeoff, but my mind was racing faster than the turbines. Something told me this wasn't just about a single seat. It was about to unravel into something far more. Unexpected, the flight attendants moved quickly down the aisle, whispering to each other as if they were handling some secret matter. I could hear snippets of their conversation, but not enough to understand why they were protecting her. The woman in my seat didn't flinch. She scrolled through her phone as though the confrontation wasn't even happening, her confidence only adding fuel to my frustration. It was almost as if she knew nothing could touch her, and that thought made me even more determined to find out what was really going on. I glanced at the other passengers, searching for any sign of support. A few looked away the moment our eyes met, not wanting to be involved, but others gave me sympathetic nods. There was tension rippling through the cabin, a kind of silent agreement that something wasn't right. People whispered words like first class, unfair, and even special treatment. The atmosphere was thick with curiosity. But nobody dared to speak louder than a murmur. Inside, I kept reminding myself why I couldn't back down. This wasn't just a simple mix-up. I had worked too hard for this moment, and there was no way I was going to let someone's arrogance steal it away. But there was also something else, something in the way the crew avoided my questions and brushed me off that made my instincts kick in. It felt bigger than me, bigger than one seat. The captain's voice echoed over the intercom, announcing that we were minutes from departure, but my focus wasn't on the safety instructions. My mind was locked on the woman in my seat and the strange way the staff hovered around her. The plane might have been preparing for takeoff, but deep down, I knew the real journey, the one no one saw coming, was just about to begin. My hands tightened around the boarding pass as if holding it tighter would somehow make my seat magically mine again. The engines rumbled beneath us, and the plane shook slightly as it prepared to taxi. Every sound, the click of a seatbelt, the overhead bins closing, the hushed murmurs felt louder, sharper, as if the whole cabin was waiting for something to snap. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, the mix of anger and confusion building with every second that passed. The woman still hadn't moved. She tilted her head toward the window, ignoring me completely, as though I didn't exist. The attendants stood near her row, their eyes darting between me and her, their expressions stiff. It was the kind of silence that spoke volumes. They weren't just indifferent, they were nervous. That realization sent a chill through me. Why were they protecting her so fiercely? The other passengers sensed it too. A man in the row behind whispered, "Why won't they just check the ticket?" While a woman across the aisle leaned forward, watching every move. Tension buzzed through the air like static. I wasn't just fighting for a seat anymore. It felt like I had stumbled into a situation nobody wanted to explain. Then came the final spark. I raised my voice, louder this time, demanding that my seat be respected, demanding that the crew do their job. The sudden sharpness in my tone silenced the whispers. Heads turned. Even the captain's voice on the intercom faltered for a moment before continuing the safety briefing. It was as if the whole flight froze in place. Caught in the standoff between me, the woman, and the crew, the plane inched forward. But I knew we weren't going anywhere, not until this moment reached its breaking point. Something was about to happen, and everyone on board could feel it. Just when it seemed the situation couldn't get any more tense, the lead flight attendant stepped forward and said something that made the entire cabin shift uncomfortably. She announced in a careful but firm voice that the woman in my seat was a special passenger and that all arrangements had been cleared in advance. The words hung in the air like a cloud no one could see through. Special passenger. What did that even mean? I looked around, and the other passengers exchanged confused glances. Nobody understood, and yet the crew expected us all to simply accept it. The woman smirked again, this time with a little more satisfaction, as though she had been waiting for those words to be said out loud. It was almost theatrical, the way she adjusted her posture and gave me a glance that screamed, "You've already lost." But instead of calming me down, it only fueled the fire. If anything, it made the passengers more restless too. Whispers spread faster now. Phrases like favoritism, first-class rules, and cover-up floating through the air. I pressed harder, asking the attendant to explain, but her face went pale. She repeated the same line, word for word, as though reading from a script. The more she tried to hold her composure, the more obvious it became that something wasn't right. The cabin crew's eyes darted between each other, and I realized they were more nervous about me pushing back than they were about the plane taking off. And then, right as the engines roared louder and we began rolling down the runway, the captain's voice broke through again, this time sharper, more urgent. He called for the plane to halt immediately. Gasps rippled through the cabin as the brakes screeched, pressing us back into our seats. Something had shifted. Whatever secret was being hidden was now about to surface, and the entire flight felt like it was hanging by a thread, as the cabin settled back into uneasy calm. I finally allowed myself to breathe. The woman who had stolen my first-class seat was gone. The crew who had protected her removed, and yet the echoes of what had just happened lingered in the air. Passengers exchanged stories in hushed voices, some shaking their heads, others offering me reassuring smiles. It felt strange, almost surreal, knowing that a simple seat had nearly derailed the entire flight. When the replacement crew arrived, the energy in the cabin shifted. They greeted passengers warmly, checked tickets carefully, and made it clear that fairness and order were back in place. For the first time since boarding, I felt like I actually belonged in that wide leather seat. As the engines roared once more and the plane finally lifted off the ground, I leaned back and reflected on everything that had just unfolded. It wasn't just about one entitled passenger or one stolen first-class seat.